Dann möchte ich gleich Miss Aileen Smith zu mir bitten und um ihren Augenzeugenbericht bitten. Thank you.
My apologies, I don't speak German, so probably I'm the only person that doesn't know what was talked about today. Okay, my name is Aileen Mioko Smith. I'm Executive Director of Green Action. We're a Japanese NGO based in Kyoto working on nuclear issues. Can you tell me where to just advance here? Okay. In Japan, there were many people working very hard to prevent this type of disaster. We did work very hard. I really feel like I cannot say that we could have tried harder, but we couldn't stop this disaster. And right now what we're doing is, of course, trying to deal with this disaster and also at the same time trying to prevent the next one. And as you can see, Japan is very earthquake prone. This map, the white dots are previous earthquakes, and the red is the nuclear power plants in Japan. My area, Kyoto, very nearby, there are 14 reactors, and it's considered the next most dangerous place after the Hamaoka plant, which is near Tokyo, and that plant is considered the most dangerous plant in the world as far as seismic earthquake concerns are involved. We had warnings before. The most prominent and memorable for me is the 2007 July Kashiwazaki Kariwa plant and the earthquake that occurred there. This is a plant that's the largest nuclear power plant complex in the world. It's facing, facing west, in other words, China, Korea. And when the earthquake appeared, this smoke image went around the world. The day this happened, we decided to organize a press conference. There had been scientists, experts warning about this type of thing. And Dr. Katsuhiko Ishibashi, emeritus professor of Kobe University, he is the person that coined the word nuclear earthquake disaster. And he and also a member of this village in Kariwa, the citizens there had been warning about an earthquake since 1974, every year up until 2007 when this happened. And so we went to Tokyo and organized a press conference. There was incredible interest by the foreign media. Then we moved over to the press club of the Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry. Press conference was pre-arranged, but we waited 2.5 hours and not a single reporter spoke with us. But right in front of us, over and over, about this distance, Tokyo Electric came in, reporting little things that happened, and there were 100 reporters, and they were there. And then the minister came, they reported that. And I heard that when the minister spoke, one woman reporter, there were 100 reporters, all men except 2 women, and one woman reporter said to the minister, "Does this prove that the citizens were correct from 1974? And the minister did not answer the question. Anyway, lots of steps led towards the Fukushima disaster. And so now we have this reality, and that is what we have to deal with. There was a lot explained about the contamination, so I'm passing by most of that and talking about citizen activity, but one mention about the food. There is a lot of activism going on in Japan on considering the food, and of course in Fukushima, people are very worried about the food. The Japanese government, even when we negotiate with them, does not say consider internal exposure. They say it's minimal and so it can be it's negligible, you don't have to look into it. But that's not what parents feel, and that's not what citizens feel. And now, even in very distant places in Japan, for example, my area, Osaka, Kyoto, or even southern Japan, or even way up in the north, particularly parents, are concerned about school lunches, because public schools have lunches that are given at school. And because of the low budget, parents all over Japan are concerned that perhaps contaminated food will be more funneled towards the school lunches. So there are discussions and meetings at local authorities. Various towns have committed to monitoring more, et cetera, and all of this is happening. And this is activism of parents, and it's called like mama papa groups. The provisional standard of 500 becquerels per kilogram is now going to be reduced to 100 becquerels per kilogram this April. So the standards have become stricter. For infant products and milk, it's going down to 50 becquerels per kilogram, and beverages 10. So this is being brought down. However, the reality in Fukushima is very different, because unless you're allowed to, if there's no official evacuation, you are immersed in this situation. And then you also have to deal with the food that's available within the prefecture. And so we've talked, there's been, of course, a lot of discussion about the 20 millisievert. And I think Japanese citizens are not aware that the former Soviet Union's standards for Chernobyl were more stricter, of mandatory evacuation at 5 millisieverts exposure annual, when Fukushima citizens have this pushed on them, and that's 20 millisieverts. We work very hard from the very beginning to try to get this changed, and there's just been so many meetings at the Diet office building facing government officials over and over. It's like a battle, you know, all the time. Fukushima people come down in bus loads, and then we all NGOs together, we battle the government. One thing that we realized with 2 very important meetings in May is that no government body it says that they actually decided on the 20 millisieverts. And this is even today true. We could never point anybody. And we have meetings where they turn to each other and say, well, we didn't do it, but what about you? And that's still the state of state right now. The other thing that we were able to do, this is on May 23rd, and this is that day, the photograph, sort of background photograph there, is to press the Ministry of Education and Science to demand that for schools, this 20 be changed. And finally, a few days later, the minister, Minister Takaki, he said that they will work towards 1 millisievert. But the actual reality is that they weren't dealing with a situation. They didn't insert a budget or anything to actually make it happen. But citizens were able to force the government to at least say they're working towards it. Because once you get them to say that, then you can keep pressing on them. So that was what's happening. Right here, the boy to the left wearing a mask, he's, of course, everybody here is from Fukushima. The gentleman to the next to him is the head of the Fukushima Network for Saving Children from Radiation. He's, of course, separated from his family because he's staying in the pollution. His family is in Okayama, another place in Japan. This just can't go on forever. That's the situation. There are many, many families like that where they've agreed, and the children and the mothers in different places in Japan. But there have been many, many battles when the couple don't agree, and the mother leaves with the children, and there's divorce. So it's just incredible pain all over Fukushima with arguments going on inside households. The woman in the middle there, Sachiko Sato, she's now started a Yasai Cafe in the town of Fukushima to try to have a place where you can be guaranteed to purchase pure food. She and I, and several of us, we went to New York when Prime Minister Noda was in New York at the summit to try to work towards safe nuclear power. And right as he showed up in front of us, and she shouted out, he was shaking hands with Ban Ki-moon, she shouted out, you can't even protect the children of Fukushima, how dare you talk about the safety of nuclear power. But it was incredible that they showed up in front of us. And the woman to the right here, moments after this, we got news, she got news on her cell phone that her child again had a nosebleed, who was downstairs. Citizens were encircling the whole ministry, and she shouted and she left, the woman holding the sign, and this is the day that she decided to evacuate permanently. the 20 millisievert has been, of course, an issue even among the advisors. This is Cabinet Advisor Toshiso Hosaka, who resigned over the 20 millisievert, and he said only a tiny fraction of the 84,000 nuclear power plant workers are exposed to levels close to 20 millisieverts. I cannot accept this level for babies, infants, and elementary school children, not only from an academic standpoint, but from my sense of humanism. And it's just incredible that he wept at the conference, and that was press conference, which is really quite incredible. And it's worthy to note that workers have received compensation for as low as 5.2 cumulative radiation exposure and receive workers' compensation for leukemia. So it's like a double standard with the workers and the other. This is Dr. Shinichi Yamashita. He's famous for various remarks. And he is the head currently of the Fukushima Citizens, the health survey that's being undertaken of Fukushima residents. The prefecture refused or said they won't translate it into English, so we did translate it in English. It's on our website. The study is a terrible study. And even in the lead, it says, the levels are so low, so nothing will happen. We already know nothing will happen, but we're going to check anyway. And that is Dr. Shunichi Yamashita. And he has been known to say that the name Fukushima will become known throughout the world. Fukushima, Fukushima, Fukushima. Everywhere Fukushima. This is a tremendous thing. We have even surpassed Hiroshima, Nagasaki. Now the name Fukushima will ring out with more preeminence throughout the world. A challenge is an opportunity. Now is our biggest opportunity ever. Fukushima has claimed fame without so much as moving a finger. There's no way we can let this opportunity pass by. He is heading the study. And so what we need is an international investigation and international help to get professional knowledge and examination of these studies. The other comment he makes is the effects of radiation do not come to people who are happy and laughing. They come to people who are being weak-spirited. Information policy. This is now, a lot of it is coming out now, what has happened is, well, this is then Cabinet Secretary Edano, who is now head of the Ministry of Economy, Trade, and Industry. What is now being revealed with internal memorandums and very recently an independent report that interviewed a lot of people. And we do now find out that information was withheld for the System for Prediction of Environmental Emergency Dose Information, SPEEDY, and that the Minister Takaki, who we battled over in May, he had in March and decided to suppress the information. And that information did include the fact that the radiation could spread to the greater Tokyo metropolitan region and Tohoku regions, and there had been a real concern at that time very early on in the accident. The other thing that has happened recently, this is Minister Goshi Hosono. He's the nuclear disaster minister, but also the Minister of Environment as well. I remember very well 2 years ago when NGOs briefed his party, the Democratic Party, and standing there with him, and he said to me, I know nothing about nuclear power. I want to learn from all of you. And that moment just really remembers. But now, of course, he's had to learn an incredible amount about nuclear power. His section is now discovered recently that no records were kept of the nuclear disaster management headquarters activities after the accident. And the Diet Committee that's now investigating is quite a good committee. Dr. Kurokawa said when he realized that was just unbelievable. But the Diet Committee is good in investigating, and their investigation is ongoing. And this is the recent independent report on Fukushima nuclear accident. It's a 500-some page report. I saw an email yesterday where they said, could 4 of you volunteer and translate it into English? I mean, this is crazy. There's no system right now to try to get information out to abroad in English. So anyway, the 4 of us are supposed to translate it. It's crazy. Then I have a couple more minutes, I think. I have actually 5, I think. This is, well, the role of NGOs I've already talked about a lot, but There has been a change. I mean, you know, it's not Germany, but for Japan, 60,000 people showing up in a demonstration is quite something. This is last September, and citizens are raising their voices. Depending on polls, 70% of Japanese people want to phase out nuclear power, or it could be 50. It's like depending on the question. But definitely now the discussion is on, and even politicians say nuclear phase out, although they might, different politicians, conservative ones, mean 60 years. You know, the reactor length is not 40, but 60, you know, so. But everybody has to use the word nuclear phase out now, pretty much. One of the areas that, this is a meeting, you don't really see all the masses of people behind here, but I mentioned this meeting because it's about Watari children. Watari is a district in Fukushima City. It's 60 kilometers away. So if you can imagine anywhere in Europe, 60 kilometers away. My town, Kyoto, is 60 kilometers away from the plant that's supposed, the first plant that's supposed to restart right now. And so it's a real reality to me, 60 kilometers. This is, if you've been to Kyoto, you know, the Silver Pavilion, all those places right down the street. That's the location it would be equivalent, but this is now in Fukushima. And the negotiations are that parents are saying it's very high, it's near 20 millisieverts, and they're demanding the right to evacuate, to be able to leave and be compensated, even if you decide, you know, elect to evacuate, to be able to be compensated. And also, children have gone to negotiate with the government. This was in August. And I'm going to show you a few voices of the children. These were delivered that day by the ministry. The children negotiated really well. There were 10 bureaucrats in front, and they demanded that Fukushima be cleaned up, and they demanded the right to evacuate, meaning compensation for leaving. And afterwards at the press conference, they said they wanted to learn better about how to not have the bureaucrats run away and avoid answers. These were 2 elementary school girls, boys, and 2 junior high school girls. So these are the photographs of the children, and recently it's just come out in a book a couple of weeks ago. One of the big problems with decontamination is that it's now an alibi, or people demand evacuation rights, and then they say, no, 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 we're going to decontaminate your area. So what citizens are saying, okay, fine, decontaminate, but don't have us sitting in it for years, because you don't know when you will finish decontaminating. Also, their decontamination, a lot of times it just, the level of radiation just goes down like 11%. Sometimes it's much better, but then it goes up again, etc. So that's a problem. And the same day that those children negotiated, we wrote to the UN Office of the High Commission for Human Rights, saying that there was a violation of human rights of Fukushima citizens. And the long and the short of it is the government of Japan said they were too busy, they could not have the UN there, and it has been delayed a year. Now the UN is coming in November of this year. So what is really needed is foreign help or foreign criticism or critique, saying the Japanese government needs to be more open about it for international investigation. But so far, with various organizations have been tremendously supportive of us. For example, ACRO, the independent French laboratory in France, we worked together with them, and then we were able to prove internal contamination of children through the urine sampling. Here, this one is the Citizens Radiation Measuring Station. CRERAD is helping them, so that is, all of that is going on quite well. A couple more minutes here. The following pictures are a conference that was held, a summit 2 weeks ago in Fukushima City. 60 NGOs from all over Japan came. They are people that are helping people evacuate or helping so that children can come and stay for a couple of weeks, etc. And so there were booths set up, like, this is Hokkaido, northern Japan. We can help with your employment if you want to relocate. Or this is southern Japan, and if you want to go 2 weeks, here's the facility for accepting children, etc., etc. And so they would shop around, and so these are the brochures that were being put out in the booths then. No photographing was allowed because we have to be very careful. Fukushima citizens do not want to be seen there because they will be criticized by their neighbors. There's a lot of stress in even thinking about evacuating. So, and this is, come to Shimane Prefecture, come to wherever. You can earn a degree in healthcare, free tuition. So there's lots of programs that are starting. But NGOs cannot do it all, and we need prefectural help. So that is the situation. And then the last word, I'm sorry I'm skipping through quickly, but the last I want to just finally talk about, these are all projects to get children out for less exposure. Sit-in is going on right now. The Fukushima women are sitting in front of the Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry. The tent was about to be taken away, but huge numbers of people and media showed up, and it's held strong. And these are the two tents there. And nuclear power in Japan after Fukushima, as you know, there are only 2 nuclear power plants operating out of 54 in Japan. And the first is about to restart, or they want to start it in my area, and we are opposing it. And that stress test issue, they imported the European stress test and said, this is the magic thing. If we do this, the government said, then it will reassure safety. But now people are learning that that's not the case. And it's actually in national news, stress test, stress test, stress test. So if you went to Tokyo and said, nuclear power stress test, a few people, out of, maybe 1 out of 5 will go, oh, stress test. And then in Fukui Prefecture, of course, it's very famous because, these are the only 2 nuclear power plants operating, famous because the Fukui governor has said, and this is Kyoto and Oi where the power plant is about to, they're trying to start it, and the distances here. But the Fukui governor has said that inspection guidelines for safety and seismic resistance must be radically revised. And also he is on record saying stress test is not sufficient to reassure safety. So if you go to Fukui and you say stress test, virtually everybody will know what the stress test is. And we have translated Dr. Renneberg's report into Japanese, and it is tremendously useful. So this kind of information coming is very useful. We're distributing it to legislators. And it's actually vital to have this. So this is what the governor is saying. New provisional safety standards must be put into place based on the knowledge gained from the Fukushima accident. And so right now they're holding strong. On this Monday, the government came to try to pressure. Noda has said that they will use all the powers of the Japanese government to convince local authorities it's okay to go forward and restart these reactors. They did hold firm this past Monday, and then we'll see what happens from here. So that is my report. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It was very interesting to hear about all this civil engagement we don't hear about here in Europe.